Welcome to another fabulous episode of Manhood Academy Interviews, where we interview a live female. She's a real female. She's got boobs. She's got a beautiful smile. And she's here to give us her opinion on issues around the world. Not issues around the world. On one hand, I want to say men's rights issues. On the other hand, I want to say feminism. But we're not a men's rights site. We don't we're not like if you go to the men's rights forum on Reddit, they have like a, they usually post gripes. They post complaints. They post passive-aggressive comments. And they're just really very emasculated males who don't know how to handle women, who don't know how to talk to women. And so most of the posts come off as just complaining, like, look at these women, the audacity of this woman in the media, or this is my personal story where I got screwed over in a divorce. How dare she do this? So it's always like guys looking to commiserate and kind of go, look at this terrible thing happened to me, and what do you guys think about this terrible thing that happened to me? So they're all looking for sympathy or a pat on the back. That's not our site at all. Our site is dedicated to teaching men social competence, where they actually learn how to talk to guys and girls and form good relationships. So we're not a pickup artist site. We're not a men's rights site. We're a totally different kind of site that people aren't even used to. To give you an example, since we're not in either camp, we're not in any camp that's out there right now, people are trying to put us in the camp. Like the feminists call us men's rights activists. Meanwhile, the men's rights activists hate us and think we're like undercover feminists or, trying to destroy them or discredit them. That's how delusional they are. And then the pickup artist or PUA community thinks we're man-hating, men's rights activists. So every group thinks we're in their group, which is, it's silliness, but that's the way it is. That's what happens when you don't have an education, or you don't even educate yourself on the views that we have on our site. But I saw you posting something on a forum, and I love to get the female point of view on all these things and kind of see what your take is on this. So I noticed you posted something, first of all, about some issue pertaining to men's rights or a men's issue. Can you just kind of generally give us a gist of what that was about, what you're posting on?
It was about, I read the
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. What do you want me to call you, refer to you as during the interview?
Just C.
D?
C.
C? Okay, C. As in Cupid. Okay, got it. Go ahead.
Right, and it was about how the men on a college campus would have been less able to, defend themselves or protect themselves against being accused of sexual assault.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a huge issue right now, especially on the forum that you're on. I notice, on a semi-daily basis, there are posts made that have to do with, women getting raped in India, gang rapes, Syria, locally, sexual assault on campus, some kind of sexual issue, right, where there's some kind of fear over quote-unquote rape culture, things of that nature, and people getting heated up and, kill the rapist, blah, blah, blah.
Well, however, with things like over in India and places where women are generally hegemonized, yes, I do think
hegemonized, explain that into English, because not all of us are Latin scholars.
It's basically where someone is slighted or looked down upon, or just kind of, it's hard to explain it.
So you're saying that women are second-class citizens in
sort of.
India?
It's kind of like their role as a person, as a human, has been lessened because of who they are.
Okay. Now, do you say just the women, or the men and women, or just, because it seems like...
No. I'm just saying in places over in India where
right.
women are looked down upon when they don't have those rights. Yes, I believe a strong feminist society is needed in order to, build them up. However, in our society, when we do have such a strong, feminist presence, and where, people have been working for years, men and women, for equal rights for both sexes, I feel that, to continue pushing this feminist agenda is beating a dead horse and eventually going to lead to more gender inequality.
Okay, I have two issues with that. Number one, when you say feminist, already that implies female, like it's a female-centric goal. There's already a term called egalitarianism. I mean, I don't agree with that, but it's already out there. I'm just letting you know. So if you agree with equal rights for men and women, I think, number one, you should drop the label feminist because that centers everything around women. And I think that's, men already have a kind of a bad taste in their mouth from feminism. And number two, when you say women in India are treated poorly as second-class citizens, I would make the same claim about men. So I don't even know how that's even valid because
with women, they are I'm just going with what we're seeing more in the news. Because I believe that, both, especially if you're of the lower class, or I guess what they call, I think over there, untouchables, you're pretty much treated terribly.
Yeah, but okay, but I would say this. I would say this. If you talk about second-class citizens, women have their own, train cars in India, and men don't have that. There's a video on YouTube of them being kicked off, like some men accidentally wandering in the women's car, and the men just getting beaten off the train. And there's no separate men's car, so that to me implies that the men are second-class citizens. They don't have their own, their own mode of public transportation specifically meant for them. Only women have that. And also,
I have not heard of.
Well, that's on the news. You can look it up. Also, there's a video, a famous video. It's called "How Can She Slap?" It's an Indian game show where they have guys being humiliated by a woman who's like not large in charge, but like a girl who's basically a bitch, telling the guys what to do, lick her boots, that type of thing. So the men on are basically being humiliated, the game show contestants. And in one of the clips, a woman tells a guy something about like she doesn't want to talk to this guy, one of the contestants. And the contestant responds, "Well, we don't want to talk to you." And then she just angrily snaps, "Well, then why don't you go fuck off then?" And then he says, "You go?" And then she reaches out and just slaps his face. Like just straight up assault, just slaps him. He just responds and just slaps her back. So she reaches out, slaps him. He slaps her back, right? Live TV. And immediately all these men rush up to beat the guy up. So when you talk about second-class citizens, what I've seen on the media and in their popular culture, how men are portrayed. I mean, imagine if we had a game show where we're just humiliating women. It would never even fly. It would never even get off the ground in America. But it's a thing in India. So I don't know. I should say, I don't think the media fairly portrays it. I think the media is very feminist and very liberal and portrays, the rape issue and highlights these issues. But these are like, when you have a train that's dedicated just to your gender, that's like a whole big social issue. Same with when guys are assaulted on TV, and then because he responds back in self-defense, really, if somebody's hitting you, he just instantly reacted and slapped her back, and all of a sudden he's getting assaulted. I mean, these are huge cultural issues that say, this guy's a second-class citizen, this man is a second-class citizen. Men are treated as second-class citizens.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't know that, but I think the main issue is we probably just need to look more towards not seeing so much of gender as looking more at individuals, because
how can you do that? It's such a large. I mean, the country's so huge. How could you treat everything on a case-by-case basis? That's completely impractical. We have millions of people.
Us as a society. I'm not looking at any policy. I'm not looking at any initiative.
Yeah, but policies aren't aimed at individuals. Laws are all aimed at society at large, not just one person. So I don't know. I mean, maybe you want to treat people individually, but when it comes to anything under the law, it's a law that applies to everybody, not one person. So it's the legal policies that have people concerned.
I know, and I'm an idealist. I'm very much an idealist. It's very sad, but I think a lot of what needs to change is our perspectives of one another. I think the terms, male, female, black, white, Mexican, Hispanic or Chinese, Asian, all the different races, all the different genders that we ascribe to one another are more or less detrimental to just how we perceive society. If we put people in categories.
I don't think that's true at all because, for example, let's say we distinguish between men and women. We're distinguishing by gender, right? We say, you're a woman, I'm a man. But distinctions and labels are created for a reason. For instance, you're a woman because you have a womb. You can bear a child. I can't. That's just part of your female biology. So there's a distinction made that you're a female of the species and I'm a male of the species. This is an important gender distinction to me. If we just call us people and there's no distinction in our biology, it's going to be very hard to treat us medically if we're just all viewed as people because we're under this politically correct system that is opposed to, categorizing people or at least making distinctions between people and their functions.
I'm not looking towards being politically correct or politically incorrect. I'm looking at not judging someone just because they are, say, a woman or a man or because they come from one country or they have this heritage or that. I'm looking more towards just not judging anybody based on anything. Yes, we should embrace our differences. I mean, I think...
How should that practically apply? Let's say you want to institute your policy of treating everybody as an individual. How does that even practically apply in society? Give me an example.
It is, and it's something that we have, and again, I'm very much an idealist, but I think the golden rule needs to apply. We need to treat others the way we need to be treated, and going back to, I guess, the whole campus thing, I don't know how we could apply that to policy because, as a woman who has been, sexually abused, the rape issue hits very close to home, but also as a person, as a human, I think it's despicable for anyone, male or female, to falsely accuse somebody of doing something so horrific to them, especially when it's not true. And I don't know how we can,
I know. I have a suggestion because, for instance, like what was mentioned in the media recently is a girl was gang raped in Egypt, and then people were outraged. They wanted heads to roll. from the rapist, and then it comes to light that it was made up. It was a false accusation. The woman had committed heinous crimes against this guy, his wife, poked her eyes with some, I think she lost her vision because they were poking her with HIV infected needles, and it was just this heinous crime. And this woman making this false allegation. The problem is, if you're a guy and you have a false accusation leveled against you, colleges will kick you out.
That's it.
Your reputation's gone. Your life's destroyed. And then if it comes out that your accuser has, or if the woman has falsely accused you, which has happened in a lot of cases, I would say a majority of cases, you have false accusations made by women. There was studies done. We posted studies from police departments chronicling just certain areas, and it came to light that I remember this one this one study they did in the UK where people were complaining, hey, my drink has been spiked by roofie. It'd been roofied. And so people complained about that, went to get a test done, and it was found that out of all the people that complained about their drinks being spiked, rape culture, etc., all of them turned out to just be drunk. No roofies whatsoever. So just women just not being accountable for their own behavior. And so we created a culture just like that because it's a serious accusation for a guy to be accused of rape. He can lose his livelihood, his job. Universities have policies that are not. They're not like the court. Well, even the courts are bad. They're not saying we're going to presume that you're innocent. We always hear this phrase, innocent until proven guilty in America. But that's not the case. This guy can be kicked out of the university just based on the accusation. His name can be dragged through the mud in the media, in the newspapers, and the accuser gets protection, even if she's fraudulently accusing him. And the worst insult is that this woman can then, let's say she's her lie comes to light, she can get a slap on the wrist. If she was given the same sentence that the guy would have gotten if he was actually a rapist, then you would see these false allegations completely disappear or dwindle to nothing. But when you give somebody a slap on the wrist for a serious crime like that, of course it's going to be repeated. You have nothing to lose. It's like if I had the choice between paying a $500 ticket for speeding versus I got a stern warning, maybe I had to pay $1. I would pay the $1 just so I could speed at any time, anywhere, as fast as I wanted to go. If I wanted to make it to Vegas, in 2 hours, I'd pay $1 for a ticket if that's all it was. So the fine is so low, the stigma is so low for being a false accuser, the punishment is ridiculously low. People get off with warning, probation, etc. There's no stigma attached to falsely accusing a guy like a guy who is accused of being a rapist. The stigma for him being a potential rapist is huge. So when you have this lopsided justice system where only the guy suffers, if he's accused, not even proven yet, just accused, and the woman, she could be a false accuser, and then if she's proved to be a false accuser, there's no punishment. It really lopsides the justice system, and you even see that in colleges today where they don't even need to have the guy be proven guilty. The standard, they just released some kind of a standard was handed down from the government where, the standard for proof is so ridiculously low. It's not even a courtroom matter anymore. It's just we're automatically going to believe the female.
I know, and it's very unfortunate. And I mean, I can sympathize with the girls who aren't falsely accusing somebody, but who, they for some reason or another don't have enough evidence to, I guess, accuse that man. But with so many false accusations out there, and with the punishment for falsely accusing someone being so low, and the stigma behind even just a false accusation, even if it's proven to be false, in the end.
You're talking about the stigma? I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Oh, the stigma against the person who's accused of being a rapist.
Right.
Like, even if it's false, just the stigma that follows you around for the rest of your life, it's horrible. You have to, put that on every job application. You have to have
and
it.
even it's pretty sad that our justice system logs the charges, that a false charge was leveled against you, but the charge is still there on your record. So it's a pretty...
And it should be scrubbed, especially if it's been proven false.
Right. So it's a pretty sad justice system we have today, and it's really a pretty sad social system we have where we kind of put up with it. We just kind of say, well, even we have public officials saying, in universities, one of the public officials was recorded as saying, hey, men can learn something from being falsely accused. Learn what? Learn that their lives are going to be ruined? I mean, it's such a...
Learn that they could be accused for doing something terrible to somebody
they're trying to,
for the rest of their lives.
The woman was trying to say that, hey, it's tough if you're raped. We want you to see what it's like to be a woman in a woman's shoes and, to suffer the indignity of sexual assault. But you're talking about a guy who would potentially be innocent of a crime just being falsely accused, and she's saying the guy should suffer just so she'll he'll learn what it's like to be a woman. That makes just no sense at all.
Especially because a very small minority of guys are actually depraved enough to go out and get off on doing something like that to a girl.
Right.
The majority of the male population, they aren't like that. And so to punish the majority for something that the terrible minority would do is just awful.
I agree with you. I want to cover something about responsibility, though, because this is a controversial issue. A lot of feminists say, we need to stop the victim blaming. But we've said that it's ridiculous to even refer to women as victims if they're going to do things that put them in compromising situations. For example, if a woman's dressed in a mini skirt, tight clothing, looking to get sexual attention, and then she gets it, and then there's sites that are dedicated to exposing street harassment like this. I just watched this film. It was completely ridiculous. This woman's walking down, wearing a skirt, she's walking down the street, and guys are obviously interested because it's a biological urge. If a guy sees a girl in a mini skirt, his head's going to turn, he's going to be interested. So guys are coming up to her and saying, hey, what's your name? Hey, I'd like to take you out to coffee. But in her film, she's portraying this as street harassment, as if she's attracting attention, doing things to get attention, and then now it's harassment, that the fact that these guys are asked, and some of them are going a little farther, calling her a slut and whore because she's not giving it, they'll say something and she just walks off like, hey, I'm too good to even respond to you. And then they say her, that, they're bitter and they say, you're a slut, you're a whore. So it's kind of, she could see how she would maybe be justified that they're kind of making disparaging remarks, but I could see their side of it where they're,
she's baiting them.
Right, she's baiting them and then getting pissed that they're,
they take the bait.
That they took the bait, and then, they're kind of mad because it's just like, somebody waves a steak in your face and then they don't give it to you. So it's understandable, and I can see that side. But a majority of the clip is just, it's not guys being rude, it's just guys showing interest. They're just saying, hey, how are you doing? I'd love to take you to dinner. One guy's like, hey, do you have a boyfriend? I'd love to date you. And you see guy after guy doing this, but it's portrayed as street harassment. I mean, the women don't understand that when they do that, they create a culture where now if a girl legitimately wants to get asked out on a date or approached by a guy, she doesn't realize these guys are thinking, will I be considered a street harasser? Will I have legal trouble? Will women put me on public tumblers and try to humiliate me? So they're worried about legal issues. Meanwhile, the girl's just like, oh, why aren't guys approaching me? Because women have created a culture where they can be offended, and the law is designed to make women not feel uncomfortable in public situations, in any situations, especially when they're kind of inviting this type of thing with the way they dress. Or even, what was the other one? Where they're drink, or where two people go to a bar, right? And all sexual accountability falls on the male. Let's say these two, guys and girls go to bars, they drink, right? Both of them drink. They end up having sex. This is like a national pastime. Everybody knows that you go to bars, you get tipsy, and feminists. Yeah, okay, great. So feminists want to say, hey, the guy is accountable. He was drinking. He should know better. Meanwhile, the girl is portrayed as the professional victim. She had drinks too. She didn't know. She couldn't give informed consent. Therefore, the man is guilty of rape. How is that possible if this guy's drinking too? Is he not able to get drunk and not make great decisions when he's drunk? So how is it that all the accountability falls on the man's shoulders? If they both get drunk and a woman the next day makes an accusation, oh, I didn't want to have sex. It was rape. He's automatically going to carry all the blame, even though he might be drunk too.
I mean, unless the guy's a violent drunk and is forcibly trying to, put himself on top of a woman, I think both parties are just as guilty.
Wow, shocking to hear from a woman. You're controversial.
I know, and it's unfortunate that it is that way, but it's true. I mean, you are just as much in control of yourself and of your faculties as the other party. Why should the other person take all the blame for something that you chose to do yourself as well?
Wow, a lot of women are going to hear this, and they're going to be like, that bitch, I can't believe she's blaming the victim. Again.
I'm not. And
you're slut-shaming.
I'm not. I was sober. I was completely sober when it happened to me, so I can't even imagine someone who's, drunk trying to say, oh, I didn't know. I was too drunk to. I mean, it's.
And that's really the word. That's really, not only is it bad when there's false accusers accusing men of rape, and then the men, their lives are destroyed. Equally as bad is that genuine rape victims suffer from not being believed because there's so many women making these false rape accusations just out of selfishness, pure selfishness, that some of the reasons are absurd. They've been caught in lies in certain cases, and we've posted examples of this. But some of them are so absurd, they're so self-serving, they don't even consider, when they're making all these false rape accusations, they're taking away credibility from women who've actually been violently raped and deserve all the sympathy in the world. I mean, it's sickening that women don't even see when they're making these false accusations. Somebody who is, raped by a stranger off the street, just abducted, right? In whatever case, their credibility is now under question because so many women are making these false accusations. It's just like a knee-jerk response to go, are you sure you're raped? Tell us what you were drinking. What were you wearing? What was it like? And you have to go through this whole, you've already been raped or sexually assaulted, and all you have to have the indignity of talking about you weren't drinking, da-da-da. You have to justify everything, every step of the way, just because these people over here have taken away all your credibility.
And it is, and it's worse when you've dated the guy because you've already broken up with him. You don't want to have to. I didn't press charges because I just didn't even want to deal with them. And so when you go through that and have to, I remember talking to an unsympathetic friend about it, and he was just like, "Well, it's not really rape if you were dating him."
Well, okay, I don't want to ask you specifics, but that's another issue that we have is like, let's say a woman's in a relationship, and it's implied that like whether you're married or dating, that there's going to be sex that's going to happen. And if you don't want sex to happen, you should break up with them. You shouldn't be in the relationship with them. That would kind of justify. Then if somebody attacked you or somebody was trying to rape you, then you would have ground to say, we're not in a relationship. So there's no romantic, there's no possibility that it could be implied that we should be having sex under any circumstances. Versus if you're in a relationship, like especially if you're a wife claiming rape against the husband, I think that should be immediate grounds for dismissal. There should be no way that a woman should ever be able to make an accusation of rape if she's in a relationship officially. So if she says, look, my husband raped me, I didn't want to, blah, blah, blah. As the police commissioner, I would tell her, why don't you get out of the relationship? Then we would say you have legitimate ground to claim that this guy raped you and we could do something about it. Then you would have the moral ground to say that. But if you're officially still married to him or you're still his girlfriend, it's silly of you to make accusations of sexual assault when your relationship status implies that sex is involved.
Well, here's what you're missing, though. There's, and I actually studied a little bit about it a few years ago, and it's when you're in a violent relationship, the abuse doesn't just happen right away. It's the guy, he slowly becomes abusive, and you'll have periods where most of the time everything is just wonderful, and then all of a sudden you'll...
Right, but then this comes back to accountability. You chose the relationship. He couldn't start the relationship with you unless you allowed the relationship to happen. So why shouldn't you be held accountable?
To happen, and I got out of it, and I'm one of the few people who was able to realize in the relationship that I need to leave. But
that's great. So, but I'm saying while you're in the relationship, why shouldn't you both be held accountable? Why should he be accountable for any kind of sexual assault when you're the one allowing the relationship to happen in the first place?
Because just because you're in a relationship, it doesn't mean you're having sex. A lot of people,
it doesn't mean you're having sex. Then why be in a relationship?
Because some people love the companionship. Yes, I will eventually.
Yeah, but that's why you have female friends. That's why I have male friends. I like to have companions too. But it's a no-brainer when a man is pursuing a woman that it's for a sexual relationship. That's the reason why guys talk to girls. They don't talk to them to be friends with them. They talk to them for sexual reasons.
Well, past a certain point, with dating, after going on a few dates with this guy, I, told him, I'm waiting until I'm married. And he seemed fine with it.
Right. But okay, I agree, but look it's kind of like, it comes back to the issue of accountability. It's almost like the woman saying, look, I'm not looking for sex, but I'm going to do everything to show that I'm into sex. So that's exactly what you're doing in the relationship. You're being irresponsible. For example, let's say your intention is when you're going out, you don't want to be sexually assaulted, you don't want any sexual attention, you just want to go out with your girls and have a good time, right? That's your intention, okay? But then let's say you put on lipstick, you put on some high heels, you sexualize your appearance, you wear tight clothing, let your tits stick out, etc. So now you're looking super pretty, but you say you don't want attention. I would say, I don't care what your intention is, I would look at your behavior. Your behavior tells me you're irresponsible, and therefore you should suffer the consequences of being irresponsible. Just like you may want companionship. You may just want companionship and not sex. Okay? I would tell you, go talk to girls. That's what girls are there for you to make friends with them, for you to be companions with. When you want to talk to a guy, it should be explicitly implied, or you should realize, actually it's sad that they don't teach girls this. That's part of the problem. It's partly ignorance. They should really teach this in high schools or even younger, that when you're a girl entering into a relationship with a guy, any type of relationship, it should be implied that it's going to get sexual. And it is for the purpose of having sex at some point. So if you don't want to have sex at any point, you should not be in that relationship, period. They should teach that in schools, but they don't. Unfortunately, they don't. And that's why we have the type of confusion that you obviously got into, that you got yourself into.
But here's the thing, though. I wasn't saying I was never going to have sex. I was just saying I didn't want sex until I was married. I didn't say...
Right, but then you shouldn't start dating until you're at the point where you're ready to have sex. Where you're, if you're saying I want to be married, and before I have sex, you shouldn't be. It's like saying, again, it's the same example. It's like putting steak in front of a lion and saying, I will let you eat this, but I'm going to wave it in front of your face for a year. You can eat it after, 2 years or 3 years. That's irresponsible behavior. You should put the steak in front of the lion when you're ready to feed it to the lion. Just this, by the same token, you should get into a relationship or start dating when you're ready to have sex and settle down and have a relationship. Not, I want to save it, but I still want to get the benefits of the companionship. That's trying to have your cake and eat it too.
What makes you think I wasn't dating to find somebody to fall in love with and get married to and then have sex with, though?
I don't know. It seems like you're saying that it seems like you're implying that I'm going to have a relationship with a guy and I want the benefits of the companionship, but later on down the road, we'll talk about the sex after marriage. That's what it sounds like to me.
Sex after marriage.
So let me ask you a question then.
I won't have sex after I'm married. It's just...
Okay, let me ask you a question then. Let's say I'm dating you. Let's say I'm dating you, right?
Yes.
And we just met. We met at, IKEA, shopping for furniture, right? And you want to get married. Or you have your intention, right, that you want to get married, and eventually it's implied we're going to have sex at some point. Can we get married within a month? Can we start having sex within a month? How long? What's preventing us? What's preventing us from going from I like you, you like me, let's get married? What's preventing that?
Just jumping the gun. Well, I'd like to get.
So I want to know what's besides jumping the gun. What's preventing us? Like, when did you meet this guy that you were dating? At what point in your life?
I met him during college.
Okay, so you're ready to get married in college, is what you're saying?
No, I was ready to find someone to get married to. If I was.
So you would have if you're what were you studying? Just give me a general idea of what you're studying. You don't have to tell me exactly what you're studying. Just give me
liberal arts.
Okay, so you're in liberal arts. You're studying. Let's just pretend you're going to be an English teacher. Okay, so you're studying in college. Are you planning on getting a degree and becoming a professional and having a career?
Yes.
Okay, how can you do that and get married? And with all the decisions, like you might have a baby, you might the relationship. If you get pregnant, it's going to affect your ability to work. Somebody's got to take care of the children. You're ready to do all this in college.
Well, no, it was later in college.
Later in college, what?
Later in my college career, it was like between junior and senior year.
So in junior and senior year, you would have, if it would have worked, like after you met this guy, you would have gotten married in the middle of college, in the middle of your studies, and then had sex.
No, I would have waited. However, I let the guy know.
Waited for what,
very
though?
Early.
That's not my point. My point is not the waiting. I already made a point about...
You're trying to villainize me.
I'm not villainizing you. I'm getting you to see... I'm not trying to villainize you. I'm getting you to see your irresponsible behavior. For example...
I'm trying to get you to see my logic. I let the guy know.
And I just told you. That's like saying to the lion, look, lion, you can have this steak after you're... But I'm going to hold it in front of your face in the meantime. That's irresponsible behavior on your part.
So I'm entrapping these guys and forcing them to stay in the relationship.
Exactly my point.
You are saying I am forcing them to stay in the relationship with me. I am not. I tell them straight up, and if they want
but that's my point. You're willing to take advantage of the guy, knowing that he's there for a sexual relationship. He's not there to be your buddy. He's there to have sex with you and be your buddy, not just to be your buddy. So when you're saying, hey, I'm dangling the relationship in front of you so you can, so I can get the benefits of your friendship and your attention, and then maybe down the line we'll get married, possibly. You're the one being irresponsible and dangling the relationship.
You're discounting your gender.
What do you mean discounting my gender?
I told the guy everything up front, and he...
Yeah, but you're being irresponsible. It doesn't matter if you're up front. I just told you, you could have the greatest intentions in the world and still dress like a slut. Even though your intention is not to get the attention, it depends on your behavior. If you're acting like a slut and you're dressed like a slut and you get the attention of a slut, you have no right to complain because you're being irresponsible. Just like if you don't intend to have sex... and you don't intend to do that until after your career is developed and everything, and yet you want to get into a relationship with a guy that's implied it's going to be sexual, it doesn't matter if you tell him or not, you're being irresponsible. It's just like telling a child, I'm going to put all this candy in front of you, all this temptation in front of you, but I don't want you to eat it. A responsible parent would not put the child in that position. They would not put the candy in front of them to try and tempt them. That would be irresponsible behavior. It's like saying, don't play in the street, meanwhile I'm going to let you walk by the sidewalk right by the freeway. It's irresponsible behavior. What part of that don't you see?
What I don't see is you're trying to compare two adults to a child.
No, I'm making an analogy of...
Yes, the analogy, but when two people are both informed, one of the parties has the option to walk away.
You're trying to circumvent biology. That is irresponsible in the highest degree. You're trying to force your female libido onto his male libido. That is the height of irresponsibility. It would be like saying, if I try to force my libido on you, we should probably I should get a blowjob on the first date because I'm ready to go sexually. Guys are much more sexual than girls. How would you like it if I forced my libido on you and said, well, you should, if I'm able to take a blowjob and if I'm able to have sex with you because my libido is so high, I'm horny, you should be able to do the same. And you're a bad person if you're not able to do that. I would never be as presumptuous as to force my male libido onto your female libido. That would be irresponsible. Just like it's irresponsible of you to force your female libido onto me. Your female libido is way lower than my male libido. So it's so easy for girls to put the sexual issue on the back burner because that's female libido. They can do that. For guys, it's totally different. So for you to be irresponsible and say, hey, you have to work on my timetable, on my libido, not your, and I'm not going to take your libido into account, that's completely irresponsible.
We are talking ourselves in circles.
Well, I'm trying to get you to see that
I can see your opinion, but you're not trying to see mine.
No, I'm definitely I definitely know your opinion already. That's why I'm trying to get you to see the other side of it.
Yes, I can see the other side.
No, you can't. Otherwise, you would realize that you should be responsible and realize that it's irresponsible of you to try to force your female libido onto the male.
And I wasn't forcing my female libido onto the male. He had every
You
right
just
to
told him.
represent what
You
I
just
wanted.
told him. You said, I'm waiting for this, I'm waiting for that. No, and I just told you that male libido is much higher than female libido.
Yes, and he can turn and leave if he wishes.
He can turn and leave, just like saying, oh, the lion doesn't have to eat this meat. He can turn and leave if he wishes. Again, completely discounting what I just told you about male libido. You're saying that, I gotta put this in female terms so you can actually understand this. It would be like saying to you, I love you, and we're having a relationship, and we're having sex, and we're planning on getting married, and one day I just say, nah, sorry, I'm seeing another chick. I don't, you should just get over it, because I was just telling you I love you just so I could get the sex. And you're like, well, that's fraud. How dare you? You got my heartstrings attached. And I just said, hey, my heartstrings aren't attached. Too bad for you. You would throw a fit because you would say, I was taking advantage of you, when I'm really saying, nope, sorry, that's male libido. I'm just trying to get what I want with my male libido. I'm applying that to you. You should, as a girl, you should be able to just have sex and not get attached. Too bad for you. As a girl, you would be torn because your heart would be involved. You're having sex because you're expressing love for this guy, whereas I'm just able to have sex with you just because I have a really urgent physical need because of my male libido. So I just told this lie to you that, hey, I loved you, got your heartstrings involved, and now just jerked it away. Just, sorry, don't want a relationship, just thanks for the sex, later. You would be furious. You would want justice. You would think I was defrauding you, whereas you're doing the exact same thing, just the other way around, where you're saying, oh, well, yeah, I know you're a horny guy, but I'm just going to dangle my sexuality in front of you in the meantime, and you're just going to have to play by my rules. That's irresponsible. That's what you're not seeing.
So it's irresponsible because I'm upfront about it.
No, it's not. It's not irresponsible because you're up front. It's irresponsible because you're taking advantage of male libido. It doesn't, like I just told you, this is what you're not seeing. I've explained this already to you. I don't know how else to explain this to you. If I am a girl and I say, look, my intention is, or I make an announcement, hey guys, I don't want any attention. I make the announcement beforehand. I don't want any attention, and yet I dress like a slut. My intention was announced ahead of time, so everybody therefore has to be responsible. But yet I am using my body and getting attention, even though I told everybody my intention was to not get attention. I told everybody, hey, I'm just out to go out with my girls. I'm not here to get sexual attention or to have guys fawn over me. But yet, look how I'm dressed. My behavior says otherwise.
The analogy back to me being not to me being a slut, but just to the analogy of being a slut.
No, I'm using that analogy. It has nothing to do with being a slut. I'm using the analogy to demonstrate irresponsible behavior. I don't understand how you don't grasp that point. That it's irresponsible. Even if you announce your intention, you say, my intention is not to entice you, and yet I'm dressed to entice you. That's irresponsible. I don't understand how you don't get that.
So you're assuming that I was dressed to entice the guy?
No, I'm drawing an analogy to say that.
I know, but it's just...
No, I'm showing that, look, your intention, just like you announced to this guy in this relationship, I don't want to have sex, I want to have this thing, blah, blah, blah. But yet you're in a relationship with him, right? Did you kiss him?
Yes, we...
So there you go. Same thing. It's like you're enticing him. You're activating his libido by kissing him. And yet you're saying you don't want to have sex while activating his libido. That's being irresponsible. That's what you don't get. You're telling him, I don't want sex, and doing sexual things at the same time. Just like a slut says, I don't want attention while dressing to get attention. It's the same irresponsible behavior. We see it all the time with women. They want to do something and not be held accountable for their behavior. Just like you want to get into this relationship and control it and say, I don't want to be held accountable for my behavior. I'm going to make an announcement, so it's going to absolve me of accountability. If I make this announcement, I'm absolved of accountability. No, that does not absolve you of accountability.
You're right. I'm completely to blame for the bruised wrists, the broken ribs, and the years of trauma that I experienced.
Listen, it's a two-party accountability. It's not that you're just accountable. It's two sides, okay? There's two sides to this. It's that, number one, you put yourself in the situation because you're a little girl, you're not an adult. You don't want to be held accountable. That's number one. You put yourself in the situation. You don't want to accept accountability because of the consequences you reaped. Just like if there was a girl dressed like a slut and she got raped, she too would say, oh, everybody should take pity on me because my ribs are busted and I got raped, I got gang raped by 4 guys just because I was dressed like a slut. That's unfair. No. Number one, personal accountability. Number one, you put yourself in the situation. That's number one. Number two is, yes, the guy did terrible things to you, according to you. He did terrible things to you. There is his side. So there are two sides of accountability. Because if you're saying you're not accountable, what you're really saying is he's 100% accountable. That's what you're really saying. So you're really saying the same thing as any other woman, that I don't want to be held accountable for my actions.
No,
it should be,
you're
accountable.
To be alone in a room with him.
You chose to be in this relationship with him is my point.
I chose to be in the relationship before I knew who he was.
Okay,
yes,
so then you're saying, okay, if you chose to be in a relationship before you knew who he was, you're saying you shouldn't be held accountable for that before you knew. So what you're essentially saying is you're not an adult and we should treat you in a special way. We shouldn't treat you equal to a man. We should treat you as inferior to a man because you can't be held accountable like a man. You're irresponsible. That's essentially what you're saying to me. Like you didn't know, just like you said, you didn't realize he was this way. So the people that don't realize the decisions they make have consequences, we call them children. If you don't realize there can be a negative consequence for your behavior, that means, sorry, hang on, my alarm went off. That means that you're not accountable, so we shouldn't treat you like an adult who is accountable, who is responsible for their behavior. That's essentially what you're telling me.
It wasn't that. I do admit I was the one who chose to be in the relationship. He's the one who chose to be.
He chose to be in a relationship, or you chose?
We chose.
Okay, we chose. So tell me who's accountable for the rape then?
Okay, I'm completely accountable for that. Is that what you want to hear?
No, I don't want to hear you're completely accountable. I want to hear the truth. Who do you think is accountable for the rape? I want to know.
I have some of the blame.
So you have, what blame do you have? What blame do you have? Tell me what blame you have. Because you just said you had some of the blame. What is that? What blame do you have?
The only blame I have is the fact that I chose to get into the relationship and put myself.
Okay, so you're saying you're to blame for putting yourself in the relationship. Is that what you're telling me?
To blame for putting myself in a situation.
Okay, so
trusting him.
Right. Again, so it's one of two things. It's one of two things. Either you're a responsible adult and we could trust you to make wise decisions, or if you make dumb decisions as an adult, we could trust you to hold yourself accountable, or we say, I should sympathize with you. And if I sympathize with you, that says to me that I need to treat you with kid gloves. I need to treat you like a child because you're irresponsible with your choices and you shouldn't be held accountable for your choices. So you're telling me I should treat you as less than a man, as less than an adult. That's essentially what you're telling me. I just want to know, which is it? Which way do you want to be treated? Do you want to be held accountable like a man, whereas if you make a dumb decision, tough luck, you have to live with the consequences? Or do you want me to say, hey, you were unaware of your choices, just like a child is unaware of their choices. Therefore, we need to treat you like a child. We shouldn't give you the same rights and responsibilities. We shouldn't put the responsibility on your shoulders. If we're going to put the responsibility on this guy's shoulders and call him a rapist, that means we need to take responsibility off your shoulders and treat you like a child. Which is it? That's what I'm asking you. How do you want to be treated? Do you want to be treated like the adult or the child?
I want to be treated as the person who made the mistake of getting into an abusive relationship, got out. But I want the guy to be treated as somebody who made the choice to forcibly put himself on me.
Right. So he should be held accountable, and so you're saying he should be sort of held accountable?
No, the way you're wording it is no.
I'm asking you.
We're both accountable. However,
how much are you accountable, and how much is he accountable?
I believe it's 50-50.
So you're half accountable for starting the relationship. Is that what you're telling me? And he's accountable for his actions. He forced himself on you.
Yes.
Okay. I would agree with that 100%. I would say you're equally accountable. You chose to put yourself in this bad situation, taking advantage of this guy's libido and saying you just want to have a relationship where you're just conveniently pals, even though it's implied that you're kissing, you're creating a sexual atmosphere already. You're activating his male libido. You're taking advantage of his male libido. And then on his side, he's responsible for violating your trust and, getting physical with you, etc. So there's two sides to this. And this is how adults grow up. They learn to be accountable for their behavior. They don't want to just shove the accountability on everybody else and not realize their decisions have consequences. That's what we're trying to teach people. That's what we're trying to get across.
That's what I was going with all along. But
no, that's not what you're going with, because that's not what you're going with. That's not what you were saying initially when you said, oh, I should be 100% accountable. You went straight into victim mode. That's take pity on me, poor me. I made a bad decision, but I shouldn't be held accountable on it. You made a sarcastic response that said, oh, so you're going to blame me for the rape? That you're basically telling me that you shouldn't be to blame for the rape.
Started out that way.
No, I started out the same way. I told you both ways. I said, I'm sorry, not both ways. I told you my position clearly from the start, and I have not changed that. I said, you are accountable for putting yourself in this relationship with this guy.
And I know that I was.
If you knew that you were, you would have no problem agreeing with, because I essentially said the same thing. I said, you're accountable for your behavior, for getting into the relationship, putting yourself in the bad position, and he's accountable for violating your trust and obviously getting physical with you and doing physical damage to you. You're both accountable. It's not he's 100% accountable. In feminist terms, it would be, right now, they would consider me blaming the victim, me blaming you. You're 100% absolved and he's 100% guilty. That's what we would be seeing in feminist terms right now. We wouldn't see any of this accountability. And that's what women are taught. You're always taught, you're the victim, it's never your fault, etc., which we believe is complete bullshit, as I've just demonstrated.
And so then, how would you suppose he should be? Should he be punished since we were in a relationship, or should he get off scotch-free because...
Well, I would put it this way. I think
that's the thing that I had the most issue.
I would give you two choices. As an adult, I would give you the choice to be an adult or a child. I would do it this way. If you want to be an adult, I would say, both of you are responsible. Therefore, we call it a draw. Nothing should happen to him, and you guys should just dissolve the relationship, even though he did these terrible things to you, right? Because again, you instigated it by putting yourself in the position to have this terrible thing happen to you. I would say that's the adult decision. If you want to be an adult, is that you both just call it a draw, and you learn from it. You learn not to put yourself in dumb situations. Otherwise, you'll reap the consequences of those dumb actions. That's the adult decision. Hold on, I'm telling you both sides. I'm not done yet. I'm saying that's the adult decision. Okay, so that's option number one. Let me finish. That's the adult decision. Is that nobody gets in trouble because both of you are at fault. So that's the adult decision. You would just dissolve the relationship, even though these terrible things happen to you, again, because you put yourself in that situation. Now, the other choice you have, option B, is that I treat you like a child. And I say, you weren't responsible at all for this rape that happened to you, or the so-called sexual assault, and we should prosecute him to the fullest and call him a rapist. And then, but by the same token, because you're so irresponsible with your behavior, from then on, we treat you as a child. We take away all your rights as an adult, and we handle you with kid gloves. We give you the same responsibilities we would give to a child. We wouldn't allow you to vote, that's for sure. And we wouldn't allow you to have any decision in policy making in government because, again, you're not able to be accountable for your own behavior. So those are your two options. If you want to hold this guy accountable, I'll agree with you, but with a stipulation that we now treat you like a child. You're not responsible for your own decisions. Or we call it a draw and say nobody's going to be punished because you put yourself in the situation to begin with. You're at fault too, as much as he's at fault. So which would you choose if I give you those two options?
Okay, so these are the only two options I have. I could either
unless you can tell me some other options. Unless you can tell me a third option. Those are the two options I'm giving. Tell me a third option if you believe there should be a third option.
I think he should be charged for the physical violence
that
he put upon me.
Okay, so he's responsible for that. Then how are you held accountable? Or are you not held accountable in this third option?
Well, I did nothing violent against him.
Okay.
I put myself in this situation, and that's something I can hold myself accountable for.
How do you hold yourself accountable? So you expect the state to enact punishment against him, so that holds him accountable. How are you held accountable by the state? What should the state do to you?
I have a stigma of being...
A stigma? You think the stigma is as worse as going to prison? You think those are in the same league?
So you would rather have someone who is violent towards women out roaming free?
No, I would rather have adults figure out that they want to be treated like adults by being responsible for their behavior. Or I would like to have us protect those women from all the things you fear from men and yet treat you like children because you're not able to be responsible for your behavior. I want to know, which would you like to be treated as, an adult or a child?
I'd rather be treated as an adult. I made the decision to not prosecute him a long time ago. But...
Well, you just told me you believe he should be punished.
Again, people like him, I said at the beginning, I didn't want to prosecute him.
But you just told me if in an ideal world, you would punish him.
In an ideal world, he would be held accountable.
In an ideal world, you would be held accountable too.
Yes, and I'm holding myself accountable.
You're not holding yourself accountable. You're saying he should be punished, which obviously he'll get prison time or something. You should. I believe if you want to both be held accountable, he should get prison time and you should get equal prison time. I think that would be a fair decision. You should get prison time for getting yourself in this abusive situation where the state has to get involved, and then he should be held accountable for his behavior against you, committing violence against you. Do you think that would be a fair decision as an adult? Do you want to go to jail and let him go to jail for the same time, showing that you're both equally accountable? Would you be okay with that?
I don't know. If a woman committed violent crimes against you...
I'm not talking about violent crimes. I'm saying being responsible for putting yourself in the situation. For example, if you run out in the street and a car hits you, should the accountability fall on the driver? Should he go to jail and you're scot-free because you got hit and you weren't in a car?
Well, no.
Well, you say it like it's obvious, like it's your fault that you ran out in the street, and it's okay if you got hit. You make it sound like it's obvious, but in this case, it's not obvious. You say you're not accountable.
No.
Didn't you put yourself in the...
I am accountable because I got myself into the relationship.
Right, isn't that just like running in the street and putting yourself in danger by speeding in front of speeding cars?
Okay, you're right. If we want to be adults here, nobody should be charged, no matter how horrific a crime is committed against the other party. Nobody should be charged because that.
So you're saying, you're giving me a sarcastic answer, as a child would do, not an adult answer as what you actually believe. Why don't you give me an adult answer and be responsible for your words? Because you obviously don't believe that. You're giving me a sarcastic answer. Again, you're demonstrating you're a child in your understanding. You're obviously meaning the opposite, but you're giving me a sarcastic answer.
I'm sorry, you are being...
It's my fault for wanting to get to the truth of the matter? What am I being?
No, it's your fault for being insensitive. I'm sorry.
I'm being insensitive? Meanwhile, you're not willing to... Okay, well, I guess she rage quit. Thank you for another episode of Manhood Academy Interviews, where we try to teach women that they are not accountable for their behavior, and this is the very reason why we should treat them as children. Thank you. Once again, we'll see you next time.